Dirty Scrap Podcast.
Hi, Ryan, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing fine, doing fine. Thank you for making the time here with us at Dirty Scrap, the Aluminum Podcast. I don't know if you are aware about the podcast very well, but the objective of this podcast digging into the sustainability trend we are seeing in North American industry. At the beginning was just the aluminum recycling industry, but it's scaling to every type US. So welcome to one of the episodes. Thank you so much for making the time. And how was your day so far? I saw that you were delayed because of your train, right?
Yeah, train was delayed just a few minutes, but otherwise it's going fine. It's Friday and it's sunny here in Chicago, so I can't complain too much.
How's the weather right now? Because it's very windy out there, right? I used to live in New York City. Right now I am based in Florida.
Okay.
And yeah, comparing to New York City, too windy.
Yeah, it's very windy. It's not too bad today or maybe this time of season. It's usually in January, February when that wind right off the lake hits you in the face and really wakes you up.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. So for the people that is watching this episode, Ryan is an attorney that is involved into the intellectual property, right? And as far as I know, you've been working closely with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, but not just that, also everything that is related to the climate change mitigation pilot program that, as far as I know, you are on. This program goal is to trying to accelerating the patenting process for technologies that are combat climate change, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so, happy to give you a little background on the kind of the couple of the programs that the patent office has in place to expedite innovation. Happy to do that now or whenever you do.
Right. So no, I want to talk about the program. I want to talk about everything related to climate change and how is the point of view of an attorney that is working on the on this side of the industry. But before that, what we want to do is understand very well your background, who you are, how you become, the attorney that you are right now, and how you get involved in all these, let's say, sustainability approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my background is that I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign and pursued a general engineering degree, which has now been renamed systems engineering because nobody knew what general engineering meant. But in effect, it was mostly a mechanical engineering curriculum. And but when I was in college, I wasn't sure that I wanted to be an engineer.
Okay.
So I was exposed to a couple folks that were intellectual property attorneys and kind of did a little bit of job shadowing and learned about what they did on a daily basis. And I thought it was an interesting way to still get my fix for innovation and technology, but also, explore the legal interests that I had. So we went to law school and basically ever since, so I've been at Marshall Gerstein for about 11 years now. And, I am a partner in our mechanical patent prosecution group. And so what we do is we work with clients, both, Fortune 100 companies, small clients, individuals, sometimes, startups, universities, and we help them obtain, patent protection. I have colleagues that also will help our clients obtain trademark, copyright, trade secret protection. We do that both in the United States and around the world. And, usually there's a little bit of a negotiating back and forth process with the patent offices around the world to help our clients get those patents. And, then if those patents do need to be enforced or licensed, I have colleagues that do that as well. So that's kind of how I got into the space and where I'm at now. The clean tech thing was something I think that started probably 5 or 6 years ago. So there was a U.S. patent office, and sorry, the sun's now shining in my eyes.
That's fine.
There was a U.S. Patent Office program that was started under the Obama administration called the Green Technology Pilot Program. And that was, as its name suggests, a pilot program. It lasted for a short period of time, but it was successful. And then the Biden administration actually brought something similar back. And I talk about that, at the appropriate time. But what we really started to see as a firm was just an explosion in climate tech innovation, and across all sorts of fields. So, I'm in the mechanical field, but I have colleagues in the electrical, biological, and chemical sciences. And, we just saw an explosion across the board. And a lot of those innovations are cross collaborative. So they involve, working with my electrical colleagues, my, chemical and biological colleagues. And so, it's just something that's really interesting to me, because I think ultimately the only way that we're truly going to address climate change, or fully address climate change, is through innovation.
Yeah, I'm totally agree. So you were looking for an engineering degree, then you jump into the intellectual property attorney, and then you just move into the green ways of the industry, right? How these programs started, and what is the main goal of these programs? And is those programs still like a pilot programs, or they are changing right now to be like a full program for the?
Yeah, great question. So they are, well, the program that is in existence now is called the Climate Change Mitigation Pilot Program. So it is a pilot, but it has been a pilot for several years now. I think it was created in late October 2022. If my memory serves me correctly. And the goal of that program, and the goal of the program that was started by the Obama administration, is really to expedite the examination of patent applications, U.S. patent applications, obviously, at no cost. And it is limited to folks that have been inventors on only a handful of applications. I believe it's 12. So it's intended to allow smaller, mid-size, startup companies, universities to use this program to expedite examination of their patent applications at no cost. And that's pretty big, because normally to obtain accelerated examination, it costs $4,000 for a large company, and it's $2,000 for a small company. And that's on top of all the other, fees you're already paying, fees to prepare the application, and the fees to file it. And so, and the real benefit also is that by expediting it, you can get a first, what we call the first office action, a first indication from the U.S. Patent Office as to where your application stands within a very short period of time. And so we've had folk that have taken advantage of that program and received a positive indication, or even a negative indication, within 2-3 months, which is, as you probably can appreciate, is great.
Normally, how much time takes to have an answer, even if it's positive or negative?
Yeah, it can take 2 to 3 to 4 years, just depending on the technology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there is a significant, I know. There's a significant backlog in particularly in the electrical and computer technology space. But even in the mechanical world, typically our clients are waiting 2 years before they hear anything at all. So yeah, this is a significant program.
Right. And what are the industries that, at least because I can understand that this is more for like small companies or small startup university people that is trying to put some innovation on the side of green fields and everything, right? Or green approaches, several industries. What are those industries that you are seeing are the most activated right now on this path?
Yeah, and so what I've personally seen is a lot of innovation in the energy, reduction space. So we have some clients that do some work in the charging space, and particularly for cooling for chargers. So that's one area where we've been able to take advantage of the program. We've had some smaller clients that have been interested in materials, and whether that's recycled materials, using recycled materials, or using and sorry, I'm trying to be a little cryptic here, so I don't give away anything that's confidential.
That's fine. No worry. No worry. You can just be as general as you can. No problem at all.
We've had some clients just recently that have utilized the program for a better, more eco-friendly way of doing construction, and which of course generates significant emissions when you're producing concrete, breaking that down.
Interesting, because I am a material engineer. That's my background. I've been in this industry for, I am from Colombia. I moved to the US probably like 8 years ago. I've been in this country several times since I was like 3 years old. Uh, we flew from Colombia to here several times on vacation period. But then when I moved, we started this company to get involved into the aluminum recycling industry, because the idea is to offer, is you go and see, for example, the European countries, they are way ahead on this, let's say, green wave that we are seeing right now. So the trends are here in the US. But back in the years in Europe, they already been through all these different, let's say, activities and challenges, right? So we are bringing technology from Europe to say to the US, okay, this is the way that you need to do it. But it's not just about technology, it's also about the process. So I've been involved in this for around 15, 18 years already. Now, saying that, you are saying that mostly you are seeing like aerospace or, let's say, building approaches, right? Construction, that is the approach that you are seeing right now. Are you seeing anything related more on the recycling side of metals, for example? It is something that because it's an industry that for sure is growing a lot right now. EVs is pushing the recycling industry to move very fast and very forward, because they really want to buy more green aluminum, that is the aluminum that is reducing the CO2 emissions during the manufacturing. So is this something that we are seeing right now? Do you think that is something that is pushing hard as well?
Yeah, so I personally haven't seen that. Although I actually and I'm not trying to plug a rope, but I did write an article recently in Waste Advantage magazine a few months ago about how other companies, not our clients, but just other companies, have been using AI actually to facilitate better, more efficient recycling process, including recycling aluminum and other metals. And there were several patents that those companies had obtained directed to those processes. So I do know that it is happening. I mean, it is a focus of certainly of innovation. I just haven't personally seen it from our clients, but that's not to say my colleagues haven't seen it.
Right. How this process works. I mean, if I have a technology that I think can help whatever industry it is, because as far as I know, and I have your article here, or one of the articles that refers to you, is everything related to renewable energy, green transportation, carbon capture, energy efficient technologies, sustainable agriculture, that I will have someone from that field in the podcast soon. And I have no idea about it, but it looks like, once you create food or whatever it is, you create a lot of CO2 emissions. So I really, I am very curious about this approach, but also waste management and recycling, that is the industry that I involved. So how this process is how people can take advantage of this type of process.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think you hit on it really well. I think the beauty of this program is it attacks all angles of this problem, both reduction, carbon capture, for example, right? Reducing what's already there. Also, the reuse of materials, recycling, energy generation. So really the program is very very open to any sort of technology, as long as that technology somehow is going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's really the kind of the focus, the specific focus of the program. Right. That can, of course, happen in a lot of ways, like the ways that we've been talking about, right? So how it works when somebody wants to actually take advantage of this program, they can either file a brand new patent application, or perhaps they have just recently filed one that is that is on point, that is directed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And it's a really simple form that we have to fill out, just attesting to the fact that the application is directed to that. And then there's some qualifying, some requirements. For example, I think it's limited to inventors that have been inventors on less than 12 patent applications. I think there might be some other requirements, but it's very easy. And in my experience, once we file that form to be accepted into the program, it's examined. The form is examined really quickly. and you hear a decision within a couple weeks. I actually just saw a statistic that there's been about 340 of these petitions to participate in the program granted, and about 70 or 80 denied. So can appreciate that by and large, it's a pretty high acceptance rate. I don't have insight into why those 80 were denied, but I expect it was probably because they weren't directed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in some sort of in an adequate, sufficient way.
Right. And is this program just for, let's say, new technology innovations, or is also appropriated for someone that has, let's say, something that can improve an existing process to reduce the CO2 emissions? Is also something like that, or is just for new technology?
Yeah, that's a really good question. No, it is open to people that develop a brand new product, a brand new process, an improvement on a process or product. Carbon capture comes to mind as a great example there, right? Like, I think the general concept of carbon capture is well known and well understood, but we're constantly looking for ways to improve that, to capture more carbon, to make it more energy efficient.
Right.
So yeah, it's completely open to to anything that ultimately will reduce greenhouse gas.
And it's just related to the green gas house emissions, or they have other type of approaches like less energy consumption or more energy efficiency approach? Because at the end, for example, for you to have an idea, on the aluminum side, the aluminum world, on the recycling side, because we have two different industries into the aluminum world. We have the primary one, that is the companies that create or manufacture aluminum out of mining. And then we have the secondary industry, that is the industry that is recycling the material that is out there, right? Energy intensive in both are way different, way different. So the idea is, okay, how we can approach to the point of view of, we can reduce the CO2 emissions, but also how we can approach in order to reduce the energy intensity that we need into the process. Because at the end, if you want to move just in one direction, let's say recycling approach, it is impossible. You need a mixture of both. You cannot just deny the primary sector. And I think this is pretty much the same. So it's also some of the approaches that, I can make the energy that I am using more efficient.
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, I guess I should clarify when I'm saying, because the official program, in my experience, that has been interpreted pretty liberally to cover the things you're talking about. It really, as long as it's somehow going to help address or mitigate climate change. My experience, the Patent Office has granted those petitions, even if maybe they don't explicitly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So the charging example, I guess, is a good one. For an EV charger, it's basically kind of on the cable level. That in itself is not actually directly reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but it's facilitating the reduction through the use of batteries in cars, and right. So I guess that's just an example of where it doesn't have to be directly on point at just taking emissions out of CO2 out of the
Right. Yeah, I mean, talking about EVs, I love EVs. So obviously, is a really nice way to approach to the normal citizen to teach them how sustainable energy works, because it's something that we know very well, that is a car, and then we are having all this input about how energy and data collection work. The problem with the EVs, and it's a challenge that we will have, is recycling battery structures, right? But I think obviously the industry will move in some directions, because once we have a problem, the only way to approach to that problem is seeing opportunities there, right? Now, saying that, and it's very interesting what you are talking about, the carbon capture. We are close to release one episode of this podcast when we talk with some companies that it's a filter company, and they have filtered in so many different approaches like health, energy, mining. It's crazy the different industries that they are boarding right now. But one of the approaches is carbon capture, and they are liquefying this carbon, the CO2, to use it as a combustible. So it's really interesting what they are doing right now. Now, saying that, how are we expecting more of these pilot programs coming ahead, or do you think this is the only one? Because at the end, to me, it's interesting that we have university guys or the startup and everything, but we also have the people that have been in the industry for a long time, and they want also to start this approach of, oh, what I can do different in order to make a progress or evolve or whatever, right? Are we seeing any other programs coming out?
Yeah, so there are some other pilot programs, and one in particular that's I guess maybe tangentially related would be there's a semiconductor pilot program. It's tied to some of the same legislation that I guess the Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS Act, not quite on the climate change front, but we're seeing a little bit of overlap there. People trying to come up with different processes to produce
Right.
semiconductors maybe in a more economical, environmentally friendly manner. I think what we've and the first was under President Obama and this one of course under President Biden. It does seem to be an administration by administration thing. So there's no telling whether depending on how this election goes in November, and we don't have to get into that detail.
Or we
But
can. I mean, I don't mind because I am not so sure if with Trump we will have the same approach. And don't get me wrong, I think both parties has, let's say, good approaches. At the end, to me, it's two different faces of the same coin, right? But saying that, yes, definitely, depending on the administration, we will see or not more input into this. But as a tricky question, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would venture to guess that if we have a Harris administration, that a program like this is likely to continue.
Right.
A Trump presidency, I'm not sure. I can't say that it wouldn't happen. I think there's been a growth in climate change investment across the country in both conservative and liberal areas. So I don't know, but my hope is that it would become a permanent program.
That makes sense.
It makes sense, absolutely, and we're talking about a couple hundred applications so far. So we're not talking about a huge burden on the.
Yeah, that's supposed to be my next question. How many people is getting this, say, approach, and are too many people taking advantage of this, or not really? And if not really, why?
Yeah, that's a really good question, something I've thought about too. So, the program, I think like I mentioned earlier, started in late 2022, and what we can find, we've seen about 400 petitions to participate in the program filed. Now, the tricky part there is patent applications don't publish until 18 months after they're filed. So there's there's a very good chance that a lot more applications have tried to take advantage of this program. They just haven't published. And so as a result, we can't see that they've tried to participate in this program. But we're looking, I think best case, we're looking at maybe 1,000 willing to take. I thought I saw 10,000. So I think by and large, the program is underutilized, and I don't quite know why. I mean, there are limitations on it, of course, that you really can't have too many large companies taking advantage of it, and those are the folks that have a lot of the resources to invest in something like carbon capture. Perhaps that's part of it. Perhaps I think some of it is just a lack of awareness from inventors, from corporate America, from startups, and some of it's just that's not their concern, right? They're trying to raise money, they're trying to get a product that works. So it's a really good question.
Right. So I think, or how do you think we can make these people that is out there to be more aware about this? How can we implement some strategies? Because at the end, it's a really good option. And because also we have the grants, right, that allow people to, save some money on investment projects that reduce energy consumption or carbon efficiency, how we can help to make the people realize that these type of programs are out there, because at the end, if it's taking 18 months after you file your technology or whatever it is, actually it's almost the same amount of time that the program being on air, right? So it's almost pretty much the same. So definitely, I think we will see more people coming, but how we can help the people to understand that this is out there and they can really take advantage of this. And also, is there any possibility that this type of approach can be involved with grants? For example, if someone is thinking about a technology and it's let's say a lab scale, but they want to go to an industrial scale. Is anything related that can help these people to have some money grants or whatever in order to improve the approach and make this happen?
Yeah. So look, I think the first question would be, how do we kind of spread
Yes.
the gospel, right? And I guess this is a good way to start is us having this conversation, right? And I
Yeah.
know your podcast is dedicated to innovation space, and so this is probably a fantastic way to promote awareness. I've tried to write about it in several articles. My colleagues have as well, and I know other attorneys from other firms. I've seen articles talking about this program as well. And so I guess that's all we can do. But I think really the hook for promoting awareness and things that something that people should realize is not only is it about accelerating examination, but hopefully it's about getting a patent really fast.
Right.
And the benefit of that, of course, is that especially if you're a startup, a lot of times investors want to see intellectual property before they're going to invest. If you have a patent or multiple patents really fast, that should enable you to have access to more investment, allow you to grow all that. The second point is a really interesting idea is kind of linking grants to maybe participation program or
Right.
how can participants take advantage of those grants. And admittedly, that's I guess a little outside my wheelhouse. I know that the Inflation Reduction Act earmarked a lot of money for
Oh yeah.
climate change
Yeah.
investment. And I do know tangentially of some folks that have applied through the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy has some grants, SBIRs for smaller companies, and so I think that's probably the best way that I'm aware of to try and get funding. But you might be aware of other ways that I don't. You're probably more in the weeds.
Definitely, we have some people that is helping us to get some grants for the industry that is related to the recycling side. Definitely something that people. The problem is, I think, as you just said, in the same issue that you are having with this not you, but the program is having itself is awareness. People is not very aware about not just aware about the existence because they maybe know or heard about it, but they don't have any idea about how to approach to take advantage of this. And saying that, what do you think are those challenges or pitfalls that the applicants may face when they want to go in getting under this program application? Do you have any what are those challenges and what are the let's say the advice that you can give to the people that want to approach on this?
Yeah, so I think the first challenge is probably fairly obvious. I guess that would be a financial challenge, right? So the patent process is not cheap. Start to finish, the cost of obtaining a single U.S. patent can be $20,000 to $25,000, and
It's expensive.
it's not cheap. And a chunk of that is fees given to the U.S. Patent Office to examine your application and to ultimately issue the patent. Those costs, of course, go up if you want to pursue international protection. If you want to pursue protection in Europe and China, Japan, wherever else, costs can really spiral. And so I'd say
It's easy to do that. I mean, it's easy to have a patent covered every country in the world. I mean, or it's just depending on the money.
Yeah, it's just dependent on the money. I mean, I think if you, we had a client. This is a long time ago that was interested in filing in maybe 60 or 70 different countries, and I remember the quote was probably $800,000 or $900,000 just for that, and most of that is fees. It's official fees. It's not our fees. So yeah, it's very costly, and so a lot of our clients will just file in Europe, China, Japan, major markets.
Right.
So financial limitations are significant. Even though the program itself is free, people still have to be willing to invest in an application and ultimately obtaining a patent. So, but if you're able to support the filing of a patent using this program, can just, like I said earlier, significantly speed things up and ultimately can be a long-term gain for you.
Right.
I'm trying to think of other challenges that as far as program eligibility being a problem. Like I said, the eligibility of the program has been pretty the patent office has treated it pretty broadly. And so I haven't seen really any denials for, technology that's not deemed adequate to participate in this program. The advice I would also have is there are angles that folks can take, particularly when their patent applications or their innovation might have a tangential effect on climate change. And so oftentimes, I guess the best example that I've seen would be the use of recycled material. And so is that having that's having an indirect effect, I guess, on reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Definitely. Yeah. Yes. Once you can be, or once you're able to recycle whatever it is, and you are giving a new useful life, you are cutting the CO2 emissions, of course, because you don't need to go to the source, or you don't need to just put it onto a landfill, or So yeah, of course, it's some way to reduce the carbon emission. Now, what makes an application go negative result?
Yeah, so without getting too much into the weeds and boring your audience. There's really.
But I think it's fair to know from firsthand what is making the people, because at the end you are making an effort, right? If you want to apply to one of these type of programs because you have a good technology that really can help whatever type of industry out there, I think it's important to understand what, let's say, mistakes will make you to have a negative impact into your application. So I don't think it's boring. I think it's important to understand. I don't want you to spend too much, because at the end we maybe will not understand everything, but I think it's important for us to understand at least what we can do to avoid negative impact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is important. So there, in this space, there's really two main requirements that inventors, applicants have to overcome in order to get a patent. The first would be novelty. You have to demonstrate that what you've invented is new, and we look at that through the lens of what's already out there. So what's existing patents, patent applications that have published, research papers, presentations that have been given, library books, textbooks, that kind of runs the gamut. But basically, published applications. So you have to demonstrate that what you've done is new over what's already out there. And the second hurdle is what is called obviousness. And you basically have to demonstrate that what you've developed is not obvious over what's already out there. And the novelty hurdle is much easier, not surprisingly, because it just has to be, let's say that you, Julio, have come up with trying to think of an example here on the fly, have come up with a new material. You've mixed, I don't know, you come up with a new alloy, let's just say that. And, that alloy doesn't exist anywhere. Now, the question then becomes, would it have been obvious in the past for somebody to create that material? And oftentimes, this is where we come in, right? This is where we are really paid to help navigate this space, because oftentimes you're looking at multiple things that exist and trying to determine whether somebody like yourself, somebody who's what we call of skill in the art, but an engineer, a scientist, would they have thought to put these two things together to make this new alloy material? And what are the reasons they would have? What are the reasons they wouldn't have? And a lot of times that's when we come back to you to ask, hey, what were your challenges in this inventing process? What did you start with? What did you know? What did you not know? Things like that. And so if we're able to overcome both of those hurdles, then we can get you a patent.
Okay, so it needs to be like something new, unique, and not obvious. That third statement is crazy, because can be obvious, but if no one is going in that direction, why? It's crazy. But I understand. Okay, maybe it's because a scientific in the past said, "Oh, I can do this," but make no sense, or right? That's why.
Yeah, it's I can give you a good example of something that where I think initially the non-obviousness hurdle was easier to jump over, and now it's become more difficult. Well, actually, two come to mind. One would be AI, and one would be 3D printing. So 3D printing is something I've done a lot of work with. And at the beginning, you were able to use 3D printing to produce parts with unique shapes, with passages that, had unique shapes. And so when it came to that obviousness question, you can say, well, the technology didn't exist. We weren't able to produce parts that had these shapes, or at least not, economic. And so, for a while that was much easier to get a patent on. Now, because 3D printing's been around for a while, and it's kind of well known that you can use it to produce all sorts of unique components. It's a tougher argument to make, but it's not as much of a hurdle as you think, and I guess that's where we have to come. But
Right.
The piece of advice I would give folks that are considering going down this application process is to really understand what's out there already, and whether that's conducting your own Google patent search or just doing a little Googling, talking to folks, if you know what's out there, or you have a pretty good idea of what's out there, you can really get ahead of these novelty and obviousness hurdles, because it allows us to brainstorm with you on how things are different than what's already out there. And the problem comes in when you file something and then the U.S. Patent Office comes back and says, this is directly on point. This was done 5 years ago.
Right. Frustrated.
Yeah.
After a lot of time working on that. Ryan, to wrap up this episode that I've been enjoying every single second, because it's amazing that we have these opportunities to talk about what is let's say, these type of programs out there, and people is not aware of this. I wasn't aware of these type of programs, and for me it's incredible because I'm seeing a lot of different technologies coming out of the recycling aluminum industry, and they are very innovative. I mean, they can change the industry good. So it's amazing that we are having this conversation, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and have all this background and knowledge from your side. So to wrap up this episode, well, one of the questions was, what is the advice? But as a good attorney, you went ahead on some of the questions. So that's great. But what we can expect, and I know we already talked about this, but what we can expect before the elections of this program, and what are those, let's say, new comments that you can give to the people that has a startup or a new technology and they are not moving forward to file a patent in a patent program? What are those words that you can give to them?
Yeah, to encourage those folks to move forward. Yeah, I think that ultimately and of course I'm biased as a patent attorney, so I believe that patents have a profound impact on the innovation cycle, but also in companies' life cycle. I think it's really critical to, if you want to build your company and utilize your innovation, that you obtain intellectual property, you protect your intellectual property.
Right.
And yes, it can be a costly thing, but it's better to do it right. And if you do it right, we've seen folks that have taken their, startups, small clients, taken a couple of their patents and leveraged that into significant investments, or they license those patents out to large companies who use them. I think it's just critical that you protect your intellectual property if you ultimately want to leverage your innovation. And this program is just a fantastic way to do that cost effectively and quickly. And the other thing I'll say, just real quick, is what I've found in participating in these pilot programs over the years is they actually tend to lead to higher rates of success as well. And this is just anecdotally, I don't have evidence to back this up. Data to support this,
right.
but I've found that it's easier to obtain a patent, and we have been able to obtain some really good patents using these programs, because typically the patent office will assign very experienced, good examiners to these applications, and they will upfront give you exactly what they think is the closest stuff, and then it allows us to go back to you and figure out where to go. And so that's the other piece of this too that I guess I should have mentioned earlier. But I think this program is a fantastic way to protect your climate change innovation, and I would encourage folks listening and other folks to use it.
Yeah, I think it's great. And before we close the episode, just a question comes to my mind is, let's say that I am filing an application. What happened in case of this program that just shuts down because of the next administration? What happened? They're gone, or?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My sense is that, so typically the decision to participate in the program is made on the patent office end. Sorry, the decision by the patent office as to whether to accept you into the program is made very quickly. And once you're in the program, then you're kind of at the top of the queue at the because you're advanced out of turn, to the front of the line.
Right.
So my guess is anyone that's accepted into the program, even after the program has shut down, is probably still going to get that accelerated treatment. It would be folks that are, let's say you and I are working on a patent application and we haven't filed it yet, and then the program shuts down, November 10th, and we haven't filed yet, but we're about to. That's the situation where I think you'd probably be out of luck and not able to use the program. But, I think the patent office tends to move fairly slowly on, and that's not necessarily a critical statement in this context, on, these programs, on starting them, on ending them. So I expect we would have some significant notice, maybe 3-6 months before the program ultimately wrapped up, or maybe if the new administration decides not to renew the program, maybe it would say, the program will expire January 2025. So I think folks should hopefully have time to plan, but my hope is that the program will be made permanent regardless of who's ultimately elected.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's hope we can keep this type of programs on the table for a long time. And where the people can find you if they want to this direct.
Yeah. So I work at Marshall Gerstein and Bourne, marshallip.com. And of course, you can look for the really long last name Schermerhorn on our website. My email address is there. My LinkedIn page is there as well. And happy to discuss further. And if it's a technology that's not mechanical, I have colleagues that can help in all areas of engineering and science.
Okay, nice. Ryan, thank you so much again for your time. I really appreciate all the inputs on this episode, and I will make sure that this can reach as much as people as we can in order to help them to understand that these programs are out there and they can take advantage. Thank you so much. You're more than welcome. In a second opportunity, if we have more programs like this one coming up, just let me know and we can just try to figure it out how to merge together and keep talking about it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I've really loved talking to you and talking about the program and things that people are working on. Yeah, happy to continue this dialogue and keep spreading the gospel.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks, Julio.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Dirty Scrap Podcast.